shores and woodlands of the north, it's history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fishery. To the farmlands of the southern counties we'll look around, my friend, at all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan. And sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can, it tells you of the beauty in the state of Michigan.
In 1988, Dave Bowman painted Midnight Vigil, our art print of the year, the portrayal of a buck and a doe on a hill in Presque County at midnight. 1989, Heiner Hertling painted Daybreak, the portrayal of a buck and a doe at opening day, November 15th. And this year, we have Reluctant Buck, an October setting in the evening of a group of deer in a field in the Upper Peninsula. Our editor, Catherine Mulhaupt of the Outdoor Digest, picked these paintings and she talks about them as works of art, whitetail art, coming your way in just a moment. So stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors. Reluctant Buck, I've been there. The only thing that wasn't in my experience is that size buck, because they're always smaller. But everything else, I've been there. I've been on that little peninsula.
And Dave's been there too, which is one of the reasons why I think it comes across so strongly to you, is that he's sharing an experience with you.
The deer are far enough away that it's credible.
Well, this is the feeling you get. You're sitting in your blind and they're wandering through and they're not really sure you're there.
They're walking through maybe 10, 15 yards away.
Mm-hmm.
And it is conceivable, if the wind is blowing this direction, that they don't know I'm there. That's what I really like about this. I can really throw myself into it, not only imagining that I've been there, but I'm going to be there again.
Yes, especially if you can get him to take you to that spot.
Well, yeah, and of course he does. He hunts. It's kind of exciting for me to know that he hunts right back in there.
Right.
He says this, of the field, this is not the best place to hunt. Deer do cross here.
Right.
It's what he wanted to paint, but he really hunts back there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I imagine that back there would probably look more like Daybreak.
Very possible.
I imagine it's thicker. Heiner Hertling, for our second print, does more, is that called impressionistic, the way the light beaming through?
Impressionism is a pretty complicated term, actually.
Yeah, forget that I brought it up, because I don't know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about art.
No, go ahead and talk about it, because that's the term that most people are going to use. And when you mention the light, you're really pretty much on the mark there, because as I understand it, Impressionism involves the use of color and light to create a natural feeling, basically what you would see, what your impression would be at one particular moment during the day, during a certain season, just the capture of that particular moment.
And this is when the sun has just got over the horizon.
Rising
it is
up
burning
through the swamp, icy,
the frosted grass.
Right, and so one thing I know Heiner was interested in was the fact that you have, as you said, burning the very warm colors of sunrise, and yet you still have some cool colors here in the grass and in the woods where dawn hasn't reached yet, and the deer are kind of standing right there where that split is occurring. So not only are you capturing sort of the moment of sunrise, but you're capturing the moment that these deer have been surprised.
You take the first one, Midnight Vigil,
Right.
Dave Bowman. You can see the hair around the neck. You can almost feel what it's like. The snow is coming down. Of course, I think the barn is a favorite part to a lot of people.
It's
sort of a Christmas card.
Well, it's almost, I guess you could call it a motif. And not in and I don't want to use this in a negative sense, but you could also use the term stereotype, and that doesn't have to have a negative connotation. But what it is kind of a shorthand to create a mood for people. Because of Christmas cards and things like that, most of us do respond when we see a picture of a snowy night and the light shining through a window. It means a lot of warm, nice things to us, and so that's one way to help create a mood in this picture. The mood here isn't really determined by the deer, it's the rest of the picture, and because he's kept the detail pretty consistent throughout, the other thing that may be appealing about this is finding the details. It's like the puzzles we had as children. Look for the things you can find in here, and people want to know how many deer are hidden in the picture, and how many windows and what buildings and whose farm is it.
It is like one of those Christmas things that you open the windows
Right,
on.
so you want to, this is the type of picture that draws you in more to a story or a feeling.
So our 3 whitetail prints of what is a 4-part series, the final one will be released next fall, are each different in concept and painting style. But what was it that Catherine Mulhaupt liked so much about Reluctant Buck to make it 3rd in the series?
My favorite part of the whole print is the part where the deer are disappearing off through the field.
Walking.
The smaller deer are walking across. They're smaller because they're further back, but they are such perfect deer. They capture poses of deer that we immediately identify. For example, the head turned right at you, smack at you, trying to figure out if something's there, and the ears up and aimed right at you. That's something we immediately identify, and that in itself is kind of exciting, because it's exciting when you run across that in nature. The doe following. She's kind of got her ears back. She might be in an ornery mood. Maybe she's wants to kick the deer next to her. I mean, she's in a very typical deer position. And along with that being nice because it's very realistic, it's very pleasing because these are beautiful animals, and when you show them the way they are, it's graceful.
Yeah, but you're just talking about 2 deer in the background.
I
mean,
like the whole picture because of those 2 deer.
Yeah, but when you look at these deer up close, you really get close to the print, you say, well, actually, they're kind of fuzzy and don't have much definition to them.
Well, you wouldn't see them very clearly out in the field either, unless you, and I don't even know, perhaps with a scope they'd still be somewhat blurry. I mean, how you really don't see things as clearly as we think we do. Your mind fills in the hair and the shadows and the eyelashes and things like that. You know in your mind that they have those. So what he's done is suggested, simply with their gestures, their movement, and some color, he suggested something that you fill in the rest of. And what appeals to me is the economy of his line and color, which means simply that he used only what he had to and then no more to get the point across that this is a deer.
Well, I mean, I don't know a whale of a lot about
You
art.
don't have to know that that's
know.
happening.
I mean, I've learned from what you've talked about that there is some sort of triangular funnel here with your eye because of this peninsula that goes out of the grass and the trees. And then you have the line coming across here, which, you know, there's various triangles in here that bring your eye, and the motion is all this direction.
It depends. Actually, even though the deer are walking off that way, I tend to go the reverse direction. You start with the things that, as I said, catch your attention, and then you're drawn through the perspective to some of these other things, but then you're going to go back around in it. There's some very interesting things going on with perspective and design here.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Of these paintings, the reason I'm so wild about this one is that this throws me into next October, right now, and I want to be there. This is one that gets me going,
Right.
Really gets me going.
Suzanne Gammon of Saginaw leads off this trophy book with a 16-pound, 2-ounce steelhead. Here's 7-year-old Corey Halbert of Atlanta with a 1-pound, 3-ounce bluegill. Nice inland brown trout, 21 3/4 inches. Robert Hammond of Rapid City caught it on a tip-up. Chris Neimchik of Wayland had a battle with this 12-pound, 7-ounce flathead catfish. And look at Mike Baumgartner's Saginaw County 10-pointer that had a 12 1/4 inch spread. Richard Peld of Harper Woods tagged this 12-pointer with an 18-inch spread in Mackinac County. An almost 20-pound wild turkey, 9-inch beard, Robert Walters of Dorr called it up. Now here's a great buck, a 12-pointer, 16 1/2 inches of spread. Ron Adams of Grand Blanc got it in Saginaw County. Says he had some help along the way.
I didn't realize how big he was, but on the way out I forgot my knife for cleaning a deer. So I started dragging him. So I drug him for about a half mile, 3/4 mile. Then I went up to the farmer and asked him if he'd bring his tractor down and help me get the big buck out of the woods. So it's the first time in 25 years I've been deer hunting. So
That you got a buck?
that I ever got a buck. And it's been 25 years since I've been out hunting deers. And the best part of it is the gentleman that let me hunt on his farm was a retired butcher. So He cleaned my deer. His wife cut it up. She wrapped it, and we took it home. Real nice people.
Hey, after 25 years of not hunting, you broke into it right. Ron Adams from Grand Blanc.
A very lucky Ron Adams, who's our Michigan Outdoors Big Buck Hunter of the Week.
What types of animals are not preyed upon by any kind of hawk? Any animal too big to catch and kill. But just about anything the size of a rabbit or smaller is fair game. Different hawks eat a wide variety of prey, some preferring snakes and frogs, some preferring grasshoppers, and one variety even eats insect larvae, bees, and honey.
Bob Newman sent us a recipe for smoked fish and spinach dip, and it was a runner-up in our contest last year. Now this is the smoked fish, and it looks like it's overdone here, but actually when you break it apart, it's very, very moist. And that's the way smoked fish should be. It shouldn't be overdone and all dried out. And this has got the regular ingredients that the spinach dip does. It's so popular nowadays. You got your chopped spinach. And I think the trick to this whole recipe is draining the spinach. You want to just wring that out just as thoroughly as possible. You're going to go ahead and add that to your flaked smoked fish. And the only other spices in this is your home-style soup recipe, soup mix. Going to add sour cream and then your chopped water chestnuts. And you want to chop those quite fine, because everything else in here is quite smooth. Going to add Miracle Whip just to kind of hold it together and give it the little extra taste that the sour cream doesn't. One of the nice things about this recipe is it's served in its own edible bowl. Take a loaf of your round rye pumpernickel bread and cut a hole out, and then you're going to put the dip in it. But you could use your light rye here if you didn't like the dark. And one of the nice things about this too is it's you can use any kind of vegetables that you like. Here we opted for the cauliflower and carrots and radishes, but if you wanted broccoli or just about anything else you wanted to use, you could here. And I think Bob Garner's really going to like this dip.
Dip of the year, maybe? Yeah, this one is. This one is definitely a favorite. If Popeye had spinach like this, buddy, I tell you, he just sat around and savored it. He'd have never saved the good guys or anything. Oh, this is really delicious, especially with the smoked fish.
And the fish that's in it, I imagine you could use whitefish or
just about any smoked fish
salmon.
yes. Yep.
You know, it also worked really nice with this is chunks of tuna or leftover turkey or chicken or something, especially this time of year.
Anything smoked,
I thought he was
absolutely.
going to say noodles. With noodles, this would be great.
I like noodles with everything, but I'll take half a loaf on this one.
Yeah, this is great. Where could you find this mouth-watering recipe? So get outdoors if you can this weekend. It's a great place to be. See you next week.